Hey guys, welcome to another Hog 4 study hall session. Today we're going to go over batches, and I have Paul again with me today.
Hey guys.
So we're going to go over batches today, all the fun stuff that can be in a batch, and if you don't know what a batch is, don't worry, we're going to cover exactly what it is, what it does, and how you can use them in a couple different scenarios. As per usual, make sure you use the chat to chat amongst yourselves, Q&A, for any questions that you want me and Paul to answer. And then also please excuse dogs barking, cats meowing, all that good stuff, because we're still here. Still have the dog sleeping in the corner. Anything you'd like to add, Paul?
Yes, admittedly so, guys. I have to admit that because of my role and job in sales and doing very few shows, I have very little experience with batches from a real world perspective. I'm going to stumble through this, and actually, I will probably learn a thing or two along with you guys.
Cool. Yeah, it's going to be a fun time for everyone. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in, and we'll get them answered. And if we don't know how to answer it, we will play around with Hog all together to see if it'll work.
Yep.
That is the best way to find out if something actually works for me. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in a bit. Again, excuse the visualizer choppiness. It's just the name of the game right now. I'm trying different options. Since Capture decided to not work earlier, the visualizer is still being piped into through OBS. So right now the frame rate's still kind of low, but it should be helpful to at least get some of the point across. So let's start off with what is a batch. So a batch is a playback object that holds other playback objects. So what I mean is it can hold lists, you can put lists or scenes inside a batch, and then anything you do to that batch, like hit go on that batch, it's going to go those lists and those scenes at the same time. So let's let's make a couple lists and put those into a batch real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and actually delete this list that I have here first. List 25, delete. Yes. So we're just going to we'll make 3 queue lists, one just for different intensities. So I'm just going to bring up some groups at 100% and then record that. And then the wash 2000s. Oh, is Capture deciding not to work now? 1 second, guys. It worked all of 2 seconds. There we go. All right, so now we have the wash 2000s on. I'm going to record that into another list here. And we'll get these RGB LEDs on also. And we're going to record that into a separate list. So now we have these 3 lists here, list 25, 26, and 27. If we want to get these into a batch, we have to specify what list we want. We hit move and then choose on the fader that we want to control them on. So it's very similar to moving a list or a scene to a fader that we're already used to. So I'm going to go ahead and turn, and we're going to use that front panel a bit. And we're going to say list 25 through 27. So that actually grabs list 25, 26, 27. And then we're going to hit move. And then I want to put that batch onto fader 10. So I'm going to hit choose on fader 10. Now if I switch back here, you'll be able to see that we have this batch on fader 10. It says batch 1, and it has 25, 26, 27. It's showing us that we have those different those lists now are inside that batch. And now if we hit go on that batch, it's going to fire all 3 of those lists at the same time. Did it not bring up the other lists? So let's go look in my list directory real quick and see what's going on there. I'm going to delete that HTTP fader. We're going to Release everything again. This capture just not going to be happy at all. Well, Paul, you said you wanted to get troubleshooting in here. Let me get the front panel. Sorry, guys.
Oh, this happens. Part of live events right here.
Yep. Go. One more time, open, close.
Oh.
It's on. It is working.
Lights on.
Okay, so our batch, because I hit go on that front panel, actually went the batch. Now if I bring down this fader, my computer is not happy today. Technology does not like me today. Now as I bring down this fader, because I'm controlling the batch fader, it is going to actually end up controlling all three cue lists at the same time. So that's the purpose of a batch. Let me see if I can. Sorry, guys.
Timothy says, never ever thought about scene batches. Mind blown.
Awesome.
Well, that's why we do it.
Yep. All right. Let me just do something different real quick. And we're going to do this without all the fancy switching, and we're just going to have to deal because I just want it to work at some point. Open, capture. We're just going to run it the old side-by-side capture, and I'm going to share my screen, my full screen without doing all the fancy switching. So I'm really sorry. It's going to be a little bit different than what we usually do here. We could make it work, though.
We could classify this under KISS and just keep it simple.
Yep. All right, and I am going to share that screen now.
Kevin says I use batches and have some more advanced questions. Should I wait? Fire away. Maybe let's wait until we kind of get a little bit more into this.
Yeah,
Kevin.
let's just wait till a little bit more than just like what our batch is. Cool. So whenever I bring down that batch, it's going to bring down the intensity of all the faders. Let me make another one real quick. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that batch. So holding down pig and list, we'll put batch in the command directory. Then I'm going to say 1 and delete, and that's going to go ahead and delete it. So now we don't have a batch there. So I'm just going to repeat what I did. List, and then the number of lists that you want, 25 through 27. I'm going to hit move, and I'm going to choose the fader that I want it to go to. So now it's inside that batch. I hit go on the batch, and it should bring up the intensities. Now, something that you need to know with batches is an individual list properties will be taken into account. So I can actually scroll down my solo wash, and then even though my batch is at full, because my solo watch is down, now my batch isn't going to adjust that solo watch while it's down. But as soon as I go all the way down, where they're all at the same level, then when I bring back up, all 3 lists are controlled at the same time. So that's just one way you can use a batch. You can also put scenes in a batch. So I'm going to go ahead and open this view. So if I wanted to put all these color scenes inside a batch, I can hit turn guard on, and I can do it via the guard, via the directory if I wanted to this time. So I can say scene 1 through scene 7, hit move, and then choose the fader, and that's going to create a batch with scenes 1 through 7 in them. Now, this wouldn't be very useful if with it just being color like it is, like these were, because these were the scenes that we recorded inside in the setting the scenes video. So these are just all contain different colors to go between. But what's cool about a batch is they don't just have to control intensity. So we can actually open up those master control sets like we did before and choose playback rate. And now we can scale like the fade time for the scene itself. So just defaults like 2 seconds. But if I bring that fader all the way up, now we'll have it go. Now we'll have them go pretty fast, pretty much a snap. Or we can bring that fader down and start controlling our playback rate.
Hey, Megan.
Yep.
Does the status of playbacks, on, off, pause, for example, controlled by batch playback impact whether they respond to the level from the batch master?
So does the like play, pause, and back feedback come from these objects inside the batch?
Yeah, this is what Robin's asking.
Did I understand?
Yeah, does the status of the playbacks controlled by the batch playback impact whether they respond to the level from the batch master?
So slightly.
Yeah, so I think if I'm reading or understanding this question, like if you have certain levels set by your list 25, 26, and 27, certain levels, does the batch master control those at those levels? I think maybe.
So it kind of does until you match those levels. So like if I have fader number 3 all the way up here, like if you can kind of see that, fader 2 and fader 4 are kind of far down. I'm going to hit go. Should just hit go in batch, but I did it individually. As I bring down the batch, that's fine. But as soon as I catch the other lists, then they all react at the same. Now a batch won't affect masters that aren't going. So like if you were to just hit go on fader 3 and use that batch to control that intensity, then it's only affecting the lists that are going. Like yes, it's bringing up the faders for 4 and 2, but we don't see lights come on because the list itself is not in the going state. So I hope that's a little bit helpful to that question.
Yes.
Cool. And then again, if you hit go on the batch, it's going to go all of the batches. I mean, all of the lists inside that batch. Or if you can also combine a batch to put lists and scenes, if you wanted to. So let's see another thing that the batches are used for. So another reason why you might want to use a batch is also to control, is to take control of your effect rate and your effect size for a bunch of different effects that you have going on. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my effect directory and get some effects going. We're just going to put those in a circle. We'll go ahead and put those in a circle as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and record these. I'm going to do just spot 2000s in a circle. I'm going to record this onto fader 5. And then I'm going to do the wash 2000s in the opposite circle and record those as a scene onto fader 6. So you can also record a scene directly to the masters by hitting record and then scene and then choose. So I have my list 28 and my scene 34 for these two different effects. So if we're going to put those inside a batch together, we can hit list 28 plus scene 34 and then hit move and then choose that fader. So I'm going to choose fader 7. And so now we have that batch, that 28 and that scene 34. If I just hit go on that fader, we're going to go both those effects. I'm going to go ahead and bring down those LED bars because those aren't needed right now. And we can see that they're all going. Now we can say on the batch itself that we want to control effect rate or effect size. We'll put size first. So that's fader number 7. So we're going to choose effect size here. And now we can see that this batch is actually controlling the size of this, the effect size of everything inside list 28 and scene 34. So now if I bring that up, it's gonna get larger. Or if I bring it down, it's gonna get smaller. Since it's the master control sets that I changed, the play button increases the size, the back button is going to decrease the size, and the pause button is going to set it back to 1x. So it's going to change the multiplier back to 1. So that it goes back to what it was before you start hitting play and pop back. Make this a bit bigger. Now we can make now batches don't have to have just unique items in them, so you can actually have a batch with duplicate items, or we can have another batch with the exact same item. So we're gonna make another batch here that is list 28 and scene 34 again. So we're gonna say list 28 plus scene 34 move, and then choose fader 8. And again, we're going to change that master control set this time to be effect size. So by holding down choose on that fader, you're going to bring up these master control sets, and then you choose effect size. And now, sorry, not effect size, effect rate. And now that fader number 8 is controlling your effect rate. You can see that with that E at the bottom there. So now as I lower that guy down, we'll start seeing that the movement's going to be a lot slower than it was on both the scene and the list. And as you bring it up, it'll just be super fast as well. Any questions right now for creating a batch?
Not in the Q&A just yet. Matt Olson had a question about searching cue lists, which I think I've answered. Jacob just mentioned, is there any way to make the front panel any larger?
Unfortunately, there's not. The front panel is the size that it is. That is why I had kind of been using the stuff to enlarge it a bit whenever I was utilizing it a lot. Unfortunately, technology is not my friend this week. So we're at that point.
Jacob, you could also, if you squeeze the size or change the size of the chat window panel on the side of the WebEx, you should be able to see more screen real estate. Paul asks, do all lists have to be running, or can they sit on another page not being used?
So they don't have to be running, and they don't have to be on the same page. So I could actually delete all of these from our pages right now. So I'll go ahead and do that, hold down delete, hit the choose buttons to get rid of them. Great. And now we can see that they're still running here in that batch. I can choose that fader and release them all at the same time. And then hit go, and they'll all come back. So the batch is kind of like a container object that you just throw things in. And then whatever you do to that batch can be applied. Now, again, they don't have to be on that. So right now, those lists, lists 25 through 27, do not exist on any page. They are actually inside that list directory. So we can see them here, 25, 26, 27. We could also do the same thing for the 28 and scene 34, or we could put them on another page if my page settings are set up to where they can actually play if I go to if I navigate to a different page.
Timothy is asking, hopefully he's asking correctly. If you hold the choose and edit the rates, it doesn't affect the other choose buttons, or does it? So if you hold choose and edit the rates, does it? It doesn't affect the other, but it doesn't affect the other choose buttons.
Yeah, so I think if he means list 28 is back on the fader. So I'm going to go ahead and move that guy back. So we can see here that like our rate is still being affected of the list itself. So as I bring down the fader number 8, we can see that effect rates actually go down. And it will see that number go up. So all this is, so what the batch is actually, so yes, it is actually changing exactly what your effect rate is. You can't really see it because the master control set's underneath it, but let's see, options. Nope. I was hoping that there'd be another place to see it. But that effect rate right there, that 93 BPM, is getting, is based on how your batch is going. This is the same thing as if you had just held down choose here on this fader and chosen effect rate and started scaling it here. And you can see that that number is changing exactly the same way. So the batch is applying a scale. So how much you're going to multiply it or how much you're going to divide it, basically to increase or decrease that rate or that size. So that's one those are different use cases for batches, is being able to do a playback rate, effect size. Yeah.
Is there a directory where batches are stored?
There are. If it's so you can click and hold in the middle of an empty display. If you have a touch screen or you're on a real console, you can just tap and hold. On Hog4 PC, you can just click and hold with a mouse, and there's the batches window, batches button, and you can start seeing all the batches you have in here. You can right click on them, give them colors if you wanted to, just like any other directory. And then you can also hit set and name them as well. So I can say color time, so that you actually know what you're controlling with that batch, just like any other directory you can. So that's just click and hold, and then choose batches from the screen. And if you're not, if you don't like the click and hold and you like keyboard shortcuts, you can also hold down pig, open, and list, and that'll open your batch directory as well. Or you can hold down open, and at the bottom of your screen, I thought that there was a batches button, maybe not. Yes, at the bottom of your screen, there is a batches button right next to MIDI notes that you can hold down, open, hit batches, and that'll open the batch directory as well. So there's a couple different ways to get there. And then you can, so just like a list or a scene, once you have it on a fader on the page, you can, you can delete the objects from the page, and they just go back to their batch directory, and then you can move them back to the faders how you want them.
Can size and rate be controlled on the same fader with batch?
So you would have to
You would have to create 2 different batches, correct?
Either 2 different. Let's try this real quick before I start talking. I'm going to move batch 1 here, just for intensity's sake. Move that guy. So you can I'm going to hit go so that we can see the faders, see the lights. So with batch 2, you can set that to, or batch 3 effect rate. Sorry, I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Intensity. And then I don't think I actually, so that's a effect rate. Then you can move that same batch here, and you can actually set this guy to be effect size. So it's the same, so you don't have to make 2 separate batches, one for effect rate and one for effect size. You can actually use the same batch and utilize those master control set options that we went over with for lists and scenes. So now I have, technically it's the same batch 3 there on faders 3 and 4, but one of them is controlling effect rate and one of them is controlling effect size. I'm actually going to switch, that's fader 3. I'm going to change that back to standard so I can hit go on it. And now we have effect rate here to make it super faster. Or slower. And then you have your size on the other one. So with the so before master control sets were introduced, you used to have to make multiple batches like I did at the beginning, to where you would have batch number 3, batch number 4 have the same objects and set one to affect rate and one to affect size. But now with the master control sets feature, you can actually set that master control set, move that batch to multiple faders, and then set that master control set to be what you want to have, what you want to control. The plus side to having multiple batches, though, is that you can label them then. So I could label batch 3 as rate, and then I can label batch 4 as size if I wanted to. That way I could see exactly on the faders themselves what they're labeled. But you don't have, if you don't want to make the same batch twice, you don't have to. You can just use those master control set options.
I think that catches us up on the Q&A so far.
Cool. So yeah. No, I'm ready for questions.
Can you copy a batch?
Yes. So I'm gonna go ahead and open those batches again. So pig open list, and so that you can see it. So we can actually say batch. So pig list, put batch in the batch command line, and then we're gonna say 2. So we're just gonna copy batch 2, hit the copy button, and then choose where you want it to go. So it's using that exact same syntax that we've covered, the object action destination. Your object is that batch 2, your action is copy, and then your destination is where you want it to go. Or it's also referred to source command destination. So again, it's you select what you want to copy. Because I have guard on, it puts in the command directory in the command line. I hit copy, and then I choose where I want it to go. And then those batches, if I open, have the same scenes that the original batch had. So you can copy batches. That way you don't have to go through selecting the fixtures, selecting the objects over again and moving those into a new batch. You can also have a batch that has just one item in it if you want to. So if I just wanted to put list 28 inside a batch by itself, we can do that also. It's list 28 plus 28. So since you have to move, to make a batch, you have to move multiple items at the same time. So by saying list 28 plus 28, we're just moving the same item. But the command line thinks we're sending 2 since we did that plus in the same number. And then we can hit move and then choose, and it's now made a batch with just list 28. So maybe in a case that I would want to make a batch with just one item is if I know I'm making more effects, but I haven't quite made them yet, then I can just toss them into that batch as I make them at the same time. So make the list and then move it into the batch that already exists.
Can I put a cue list and a scene into the same batch?
Yes, we actually have that going on right now. So list 28 here and scene 34 are inside batch number 3. You just have to be specific on the command line. So how that can work again is list 28 and so plus scene and then the number that you want. So I'll just do 34 because I know it exists. And then move and then choose. And that now has made the scene 28 and list 28 and scene 34 into the same batch. So and then when you go to the batch, it also is going to give you the current queue. If you open the batch window, you can see the current queue that's playing. If you had multiple lists in there, you'd see all the different queues for those different lists that are currently going, your intensity, your effect rate, size, playback rate, that kind of deal. Crossfade scalars.
Can you remove a list, an individual list or a scene from an existing batch without re-recording it?
Yes, you can. I have to list 28. Oh, sorry, I know you can. Well, I think it's list 28. Remove from batch. So it's the list that you want or the scene that you want, and then you hit move twice. So if I wanted to get rid of scene 34 out of batch 9, I hit scene 34, move, and then whoops, that was merged. Move and then move again, and you'll see on the command line that it changes from move to remove from, and then you choose the batch that you want it to be. So we choose batch number 9, and now it's an empty batch. There's nothing else inside that batch. So it's the move key twice instead of once.
Yep. And I would also point out that, modifying, some of these batch commands, some of this syntax, this is all available in section 17 in the user manual.
Yeah, so if you go to help, and then there should be a whole batches section, 17.12, that talks a lot more about batches, or talks about batches, how to create a batch, how to modify batches, and then also using batches and all that good stuff.
Question: if a queue list has more than one queue, does go on the batch fader automatically increment all lists in the batch? I believe so.
Yes, and it does it all at the same time. So let's go ahead and do that example real quick. I'm going to open some groups and open the color directory. So we have them on. I'm going to go ahead and release, and we'll tilt them downstage a little bit. All right, so they're tilted. I'm going to put them in red first. We're just going to record this list here. And then I'll do the same thing with the RGB LEDs in the back. All right, so we're going to move these two lists into a batch. So we're going to say list 29 plus 30, move, and then choose the fader. So now we're there in batch 10. And I'm going to double tap choose to open the batch so that we can see exactly what's going on. So now if I hit go, we'll see that they're on Q1 and they're in red. When I hit go again, since it's a list, it's just going to increment to the next color. And then the same thing when I hit go again. Now, if I were to hit go on fader 9, now they're not in the same steps. So list 29 is on Q3, list 30 is on Q1. Now when I hit go on the batch again, it's still going to increment each one by 1. So they're not staying at Q1. Now one's at Q1, one's at Q2. I hit go again, and again, they're staggered.
think that. Oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. You got the questions are coming in, which is great, but it doesn't auto scroll. So if the moment I kind of blink, it updates. Will the go-to button work in a batch? Assuming it's the chosen. I don't think that it will. I wouldn't expect it to.
I don't think so because there's nowhere to go. But I mean, I can always. Oh, yes, it does. So when you hit go to 1, enter, it goes to Q1 on everything that can go into Q1.
We all learned together.
We did. I've never tried to do that on a batch. Most of the time I'm using batches for effect rate scalars or effect size scalars. I don't usually put multiple lists at the same time, but I could definitely see like a stack of like positions. So you have your spot 2000 positions, your wash 2000 positions, and like your frame 2000 frame positions in there. And that way you can control your playback rate so that you can snap them and stuff like that pretty quickly. But I've never tried to do this, to be honest, to do a go-to. So as long as the batch is chosen, hit go to, and then the queue you want to go to, enter, and it's going to go to that queue on all the lists inside that batch. Now I wonder, so y'all have my mind going now, if I put a scene inside that batch. What's one that I have? Scene 34. Move. So now if I hit go to 1, enter. Okay, so and if you have a scene inside the batch, the go to just doesn't do anything to that scene because there is no queue for a scene for a go to work inside a scene.
All right. I think we're caught up.
Awesome. Cool, great. So a little bit more about batches then. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that scene 34. So scene 34, move, choose, and get that scene 34 out of there. So you can also change what your batch is exactly doing. The main thing in here is your batch details. So whether or not you actually want to show on the playback bar what lists and scenes are inside the batch, you can do that here. And again, by going this way, it is a per batch basis. So if I double tap choose to open the batch window and then hit options, it's a per batch option. Then you can go into standard, change what your go, pause, backs do, just like if it was a queue list or a scene that you had normally on a batch. And same thing for intensity, playback rate, effect size. Again, one thing that I like to do for effect rate and effect size is maybe not set a lower bound as 0 so it stops, is to have it be 1/16x and keep my upper bound kind of low also. That way it doesn't move up and down. That way it doesn't go too fast or too crazy, and then the lower bound so it doesn't actually stop. And then we could set one of these other things like pause. Maybe we actually set that to be 0x instead of 1x. That way it actually pauses when I hit pause. Same thing for effect rate. You can change all of that as well at the same time. Inside standard, instead of having just be an iFader, you can also be an IPCB crossfader for everything inside the batch itself. So as you bring that up, it should release clear. Let me try that again. Yeah, good. Awesome. Capture decided to stop working again. I'm so excited that next week is all about plots. Because then I don't necessarily have to have capture completely open. All right, let's try this again. So now, as I bring up fader number 6, it's being that IPCV crossfader. So it's actually crossfading all the lists based on your fader level. And that's what this crossfade level actually is here inside the batch. So if you need an IPCV crossfader across multiple lists at the same time, then you can do it this way also. So batches are just really, again, they're just really nice to control everything at the same time. And then it also has the manual crossfader option so that you can actually crossfade from one queue to the next. So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and it's just listing to that fader to actually control that queue list crossfade. So you still get fader options even though it's a batch, so you're not just stuck to exactly what that master control set is doing. You can change it pretty quickly to whatever you want it to control. This is and controlling those are cases that you might want to make multiple batches of the same objects in case you don't need an IPCV crossfader one time. Then you could have it be set to a manual crossfader in a separate batch, or you could just adjust the control sets again. Any other questions about batches? I don't. Or if anyone has other good things to use for batches, I'm also willing to show and do. I mean, batches are great. Batches are really useful. It's just it's another concept to just throw things in and start adjusting playback rate and effect size.
Do you know if they're Sanders sent me this. Do you know if there's a request for displaying effect speed or tempo or percentage of the batch master? Like a feature request?
Displaying it where? Because I thought did we not? Sorry, we show the scale here at the bottom, just like we do for everything else. We just don't show the actual effect rate and effect size there, because that's your effect rate and your effect size, because all the batch is doing is actually applying like a multiplier to it. So we don't show, so that could get kind of, I don't know, answering the question directly, I don't know if there is. Now adding on to that, it could get kind of cumbersome if you have 8 lists in here and you're trying to see what exactly that effect BPM is on each of those 8.
Right.
But if you open the batch, you can also see what the effect rate and the effect size is for that individual scene or that individual list. It's just not shown on the playback bar itself. The playback bar is going to show you what that scalar is. So to get to that rate, what it's doing is that 0.51 times whatever the base rate is on that list. So on list 29, it's times that 120 BPM number.
So I guess when you're creating batches, does the loading order for which you're putting them in or adding them or to create the batch from low to high, or as you type them, is there any priority?
No, there's not, because everything inside the batch is executed at the exact same time when you hit go.
Right.
I don't. So if I toss in list.
I mean, I think that, I mean, if it's regarding queue list or scene back, I mean, if there's individual list options like playback priority set, there may be a little bit of priority there. But I think, I imagine with batches, everything is being executed at once.
Yeah, so you'll want to be careful what you actually load in the batch. So, like, if you want, if like all those scenes that I put in there that were the color, just hitting go on that batch doesn't really execute for specific scenes to go, because they would all stomp out each other. Let me move that real quick back here. Well, and then we can bring those guys on. So by hitting go on that fader, we're getting colors to go, but they're not going to be, so even though we have all these scenes, it's just defaulting to the last one, whatever the last color, whatever the last scene is, because they're all controlling the same parameters. They're all trying to stomp each other out, so the last one is what wins. Yeah, and then how they're presented inside this inside the batch is the order that you added them in. So like in batch 10 here, I just added list 28, and because I added it last, it got put at the very bottom.
Kevin asked an interesting question. Is batch the place where I could accomplish a quote-unquote if scenario? Like with several random lists running, I want any fixture in white would strobe if white. So like if white then strobe. No, I don't think this would necessarily be accomplished here.
No, I don't think so also. I don't know where you would accomplish that, to be honest. Do you have an idea, Paul?
No, I don't think that functionality really is present.
I don't think so either. Hog doesn't really do conditionals like that.
Interesting though.
It is interesting. I'm trying to run through like how if it would be possible right now with what's inside Hog to do.
What about syncing multiple batches? So, like, I guess the question stems from the question. I think that question stems from if you had various batches, then could you create a batch of all those other batches?
I don't think you can put a batch inside a batch. No, it gets reg syntax.
Yeah.
Trevor
clarify the if scenario is an MA thing.
I thought so. Based on my limited MA knowledge, but I wasn't going to say it out loud.
He's like IDK if that's taboo to talk about here. No, it's not taboo.
Yeah, I thought that was a MA thing based on like what I've heard MA can do. I just didn't know. I just, like I said, just stayed away from focusing purely on the Hog side. I don't think there's a way to say, hey, take all the stuff that's in white and make it red, or like strobe it, for example. Well, actually,
you can do variations of that if you're doing live programming with Suck, if it's referencing palettes and things.
Yeah, that's what I just thought about. So like if I put them in like inside this white color mix, and I record that into a list. I guess it's not very showing if I don't have something else in there. Merge, field one, enter. So now if I go that list, we have those guys in the back there, the blue LEDs. But if I want to grab just the fixtures that are in white right now, in that live color, in that white palette that I had, then I can say live. So live is selecting all fixtures that are above 0% intensity. And then I hit I always live, and then that color mix. And now it's grabbed all the fixtures that are inside that color mix. So then if I had like a strobe, so then I can apply a different color to them, or I could apply a strobe to them at that point. So then I could say, which is probably going to look great on the visualizer, but I could apply my stuff at that point. So if you were to, so that is a way you could kind of do it from Playback. is live, and then tap on the palette you're looking for, and then start adjusting from there. There's just no pure way to do it just in playback. Like say if they're white inside this queue, go this queue.
Right.
But you could do it this way. That is a way you could do that.
Yeah, that's true. Billy makes also good point. You could also use masking in the playlist, like playback masking.
Turned on mask playback and then select.
So select certain items.
Yeah, but that would only work for what masks you have created, right? For what kinds you have created, right?
Correct.
Not for specifically saying, like, go a queue. But yeah, that is a way that you could say, hey, I only want to show red, or I only want to show green for this one specific queue list. If there's no other questions specific to batches, I can go into a little bit more about how that mask playback works.
Yeah, I think we're caught up with questions from I can see.
But I'm going to go ahead and clear out my page. Because that's actually kind of useful to know how that works. So I'm going to first re-record that view without guard. Now we can bring up the Wash 2000s, put them inside a position palette, and that is scenes. And then we'll put them inside a color here. Right, and then we'll also put a gobo in them so that we can see something. All right, so inside this wonderful queue that I made, we have position, color, and some gobo and zoom information. So what we can do here is record this into a list. Now when I go this list, it's going to go in and play everything back that we have. So color, position, gobo. Now if I hold down, so now if I go into that list options, so double tap choose, hit options, I can then hit mask playback. And when I hit mask playback, now we can select what we want out of that queue list. So if I do intensity and color, so that's just going to do intensity color. I release that guy, play it back. Now we only get that intensity and that color. So we only get yellow and we get that 100% intensity. We don't get anything else. We can then also say, I'm going to release it again, that we can access it from by holding down choose. We can also access it at the bottom there. So now I can just say, hey, give me intensity and position. So actually I don't want the yellow color at this point in time. I just want the position and the intensity. And then also, again, mask it out and say, I want beam intensity and position. So when I play it again, it's everything except for the yellow color. So the mask playback can be really useful if you've programmed a lot of information inside that queue list, but now you just want that color or you just want that beam information. So that's kind of, so that mask playback, I'm going to dive in into a little bit about kinds real quick.
Hey, before you do,
yes,
a couple of questions.
Okay, I'm ready for them.
Yeah, if you have several lists in a batch and one is a chase, can you or how can you stop the one chase?
You have several lists in a batch and one's a chase.
One's a chase.
How do you just stop the chase?
Kevin, in his follow-up, he says I had to make he has to make a virtual list release button. So basically, maybe like a scene that has a release list.
that's probably the easiest thing to do because there's no quick way to say, hey, just this list release in the batch.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest thing to do. I was actually going to suggest that.
That's probably what I would do as well.
Where you have like a stop list or a stop scene that just releases that. And then you could move that to somewhere that's useful, like a command line or something like that. Or like the command button. That way when you just tap on that command button, it releases
Yep.
that guy.
Going back to going back to your playback masking, in a follow-up there, can you mask part of, let's say, for instance, the beam parameter that you want? You just want to, that you want all but the size of zoom to be masked. Do you get more options? Like, let's say if you have specific kind keys.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to go to next, but let's see. Cool. I don't think we've talked about kinds. I know that function keys have to deal with kinds, but we're going to still just talk about what the kind is real quick before I tackle that specific question. So you have your kind keys. We've been using them for the intensity, position, color, beam, effect, time, control buttons. We've been using them this entire times. These are kinds. Hog gives you the option to make your own custom kinds, so your own wheel sets. So if you're going to make a custom kind, you can press record. You can open up the kinds directory. You hold down open, tap on kinds, and that's going to open up your kinds directory. Then you can press record and shoot and click where you want it to be recorded and open up that kind editor. And when you open up the kind editor, you're then presented all the functions that exist in the show file. So if I wanted to just put if I wanted to make one that was pan, tilt, zoom, focus, I could do that by going and finding position, and you just find it and you drag it onto that encoder wheel. And then you find the next one and drag it next to it, and so on. Then the one right below it, if I was to drag a parameter to the one below it, then how we hit color multiple times and we get different options, or beam multiple times and get different options, then that's the same thing here. If I had another option on the second queue list, on the second set of encoders, now I could hit this button twice and again get another wheel set. But what I want to do is take it off first. I'm going to put blanks there. There we go. So to get rid of a kind, you have to click and drag on it from an empty wheel, and then that'll get rid of it, or get rid of a function, I should say, not a kind. But if I just wanted to put gobo here, and then gobo rotate, for example, then I hit apply, and I'm going to rename this to be gobo. So now I have this gobo button here. If I change my mode on my command keys to kind, we'll see that there's a button here that's gobo. And I believe that should, I don't know why I deleted that list. I believe that should give us the option to move that to a command key, to down here. 5. Yeah, we now have that mask option to just show the gobo information. We don't have to get the beam information if we wanted to now. Which is going to be kind of hard to see, but now we have the gobo without the zoom information in there. So once you have custom kinds, then you can actually start getting a lot more specific on that masking playback option.
Can you show how you got to that window again? Timothy is asking. I'm assuming the kinds window or the options.
So first, to get to the kinds window, to where you make your custom kind, you hold down the open button, and at the bottom of your screen, there's a kinds button. When you click that, you get the gobo here. I mean, you get your kinds directory, and then you can record your kinds from here. Now, if you're trying to mask out an option, to mask out a playback item, you just hold down choose on that fader, and then there should be a playback mask option here, and you choose what you want to show. And if you want to go back to just being default, so going back to seeing the entire look, just turn off mask playback, and you'll get rid of that little mask icon there. release it, and then when you play it again, it's going to be that entire look again. You don't have to add in all the objects. You can just turn off mask playback.
No, the editor window for kinds.
Yes.
Timothy, you just open the kind. Hold down open to hit the kind.
Yeah, so whichever kind you want to edit, you hold down open and you click on, and that's going to open your kind editor itself. So you hold down open, you tap on it, and it's going to open that editor. If you don't want to go and make all the kinds yourselves, so like I didn't have to make that Gobo one, I'm going to go ahead and delete it. There's also an auto kinds button in this window, and what the auto kinds button is going to do is automatically generate you some user kinds based on the fixtures that you have inside your show file already. And I'll make these a bit bigger so we can actually see them. So you can actually see intensity, position, color, beam, effects, time control. Those are the standard ones, but now we have one for RGB intensity. So if I select the RGB bars, then when I click on RGB intensity here, my encoder wheels just go directly to red, green, blue. Or I can click on color mixing, and they just show me CMY and saturation. Or if I were to select the spot 2000s, 1 through 9, enter, we start seeing that there's a lot more kinds that can be selected here. So we can just say, great, show me only the Gobo 1 options. I don't care about the rest of the options in the beam. Or just show me the focus, or just show me the iris options here. And that's what these function keys are really used for, or in kind mode, or to access those user kind functions. And we're going to go over those more so inside the what the function video at the last one.
Nice.
Cool. Any other questions? And they don't have to pertain to what we did. We still have some time if you guys want to ask questions right now.
Standing by.
Awesome. If you guys aren't familiar, I'll just fill in the void until there is a question, unless Paul has one now.
Oh, I do have one. I'm sorry, I went back and looked a little bit. Would you recommend badges only for effects control and maybe keep multi-list and scene go commands using macros?
I think it depends.
I think it depends too, Steve. It really kind of depends on your preference and how in your workflow.
Yeah.
Would probably be the best answer to that question. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think there's a what works best for you.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're doing, what it calls for. Most of the time, my cue lists don't have to go all at the exact same time. So badges are really good when you want to execute something right at the same time or adjust something all together at once. So you want the same effect rate to be applied, or you want the same effect scale to be applied.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good.
Can a batch be an inhibitive fader?
No. Well, no. I'm gonna say flat out no. You can't. I don't believe you can. Let me try it real quick, and then we'll also go over what inhibitive masters are. So inhibitive masters, for all of us that don't usually use this too often, inhibitive masters are basically like submasters you can make with your groups. So smaller grandmasters. So I can move a group to the faders. So I can select group 1, hit move, and then choose the fader I want it to go to, and I have this option here now, or this group here. Now, if I had my spot 2000s at 100%, if I bring down this group, it's not going to change the programming information. It's just going to scale the intensity. Just like if I was adjusting the grandmaster instead of this group master, so this inhibitive master. I don't believe you can put multiple groups inside of a batch. Again, it's just one of those things I haven't tried. No, you cannot.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I hadn't read about it, and it was one of those things that I haven't tried in my shows. But inhibitive masters are useful. you can like I said, so that now my Solo Spot 2000's max intensity won't go above 44%. So when I bring the fixtures on at full, it's full, but it's being outputted via DMX is 44% of whatever my intensity is here. If I were to bring that fader all the way up, we're going to go back to 100%. It's the same as if I brought down my Grandmaster to 44% though.
I think that catches. Oh, wait a minute. I have a custom fixture with beam parameters in a random order. Is the kinds editor where I can place them in the desired order? And I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, so you can go and make your own. I would probably go and still make your own kind, where you hit record, and then you have to drag them into whatever order you want them in there at that point. Because they don't always have to go pan, tilt, zoom, focus. They can go tilt, pan, zoom, focus, or tilt, pan, then tilt, whatever order you want them to actually be in. So that is one way you can do it. You can also edit these built-in kinds, so 1 through 7. You just get a little bit of so you see that there's this lock for pan and tilt. It just means that they can't, they still have to exist inside this kind itself. So some people like to make a new kind that has tilt, then pan, because you have to tilt before you pan for most moving head fixtures. So then we could, because I edited those pan and tilts always have to be there. They're not, I just taught myself something. But I don't think, okay. Apparently, so you can really mess up your user kinds. I thought the locks meant that they had to stay there forever. And then if I hit apply now for that tilt, pan, position time, so now it's tilt then pan. When I select my spot 2000s and I hit position, we can see that my first position encoder reel's tilt and my next one's pan. So you could even go and adjust your fixed kind keys if you wanted to be exactly how you need them or how you want them for programming. And it's going to apply to all the fixtures, not just the spot 2000s. It'll start applying to all of the fixtures that you have that can be controlled via those parameters. So just be aware when you say you have random order, it might not be a random order on your other fixture.
Kevin asked, going back to the inhibitive subs or inhibitive faders, is there a way to name them? And I thought if it takes the name of the group by default.
Yeah. So if I was to change the spot 2K, it's going to change the name of the group itself.
Yep.
So inhibitive masters, because they're just group masters at that point, they just mirror the group directory name.
Paul asks, on a hoglet, how would I change the pages of kinds 1 through 12 to 13 to 24? And Paul, what basically what happens is with those 12 kind keys, the moment you have 12 plus kind keys or command keys, that last button becomes effectively a page through or a next page. So you would be able to hit that bottom right button to change your pages.
Yeah, you can't really see it too well here, but it does say kind 1 of 2. So you can just click there. Sorry to cut you off, Paul.
No worries.
And everything that we're doing here, guys, I know that there's definitely different versions of Hog 4s to consoles. It applies to all of the Hog 4 consoles. So if I say hit the scene button, it's the same scene button on all of them. Because it says kind 1 of 2, even on the Hedgehog or the Hoglet that doesn't have the screens on the front panel, the only difference is you don't have the screens on the front panel. These buttons are going to act the exact same. And on those consoles, since you don't have the screens on the front panel, when you hold down open, you'll see a function keys option, and then you'll be able to see exactly what's on those those keys. So right there where it says kind 1 of 3, that's how we next page. So as soon as you get more than 12, so once you get that 13th kind, it'll give you that next page automatically. Again, that's holding down open and getting to the function keys.
All right, I think that takes us to the wait a minute. Have you taught about function keys? No, we have not taught about function keys yet.
No, we have a whole video dedicated to that. Yeah. There's going to be a whole video dedicated, and that's going to be more of a, this is how we do it, and then here's a bunch of use cases for your kind and your command keys for those function keys.
All right. Any other questions, guys? Are we kind of a little bit of free flow at this point, Megan?
Yeah, yeah, we are. If any questions, whether or not they pertain to Bash or anything I've covered, we can definitely try to answer.
Billy asked, when will there be a version for Mac? LOL.
Billy, you and I can't say for when or if or what the deal is, but I'm also hoping, as much as everyone else is, that there's a Mac version. Because I would much rather be on Mac than PC all the time.
I'm kind of weird like that. I love my iPhone and my iPad, but I love my PC computer.
I don't know. I also can't do all the stuff that I want to do on my PC on a PC, which is why I also have to have my Mac. But that's a whole other thing that's not pertaining to Hog. But I'm all in on the Apple ecosystem in my house.
Any other questions, guys, or anything that we may want to try and see again, or Vlad asked, hi, how can I import CSV from Hog4 to Capture?
I should know how to do this. I also can't even show how to do this on this computer that I'm on.
Maybe something we have to do next time around.
Yeah. Also, I don't have a license on this Alienware.
Oh, it's all good.
The license, we just use a presentation file on our training laptops.
Kevin, is there a way of gang loading faders instead of having to move lists 1 through list one by one, i.e. list 1 through 5 to fader 1 through 5? I'm not sure how the syntax feels about that.
I don't think there is.
Okay, yeah,
because if I select multiple
button.
Well, yeah, and if I select multiple, then it's going to want to just put them into a batch now.
So in short, Kevin, no.
No. Yeah. There are something that you can do quickly though is if you want to move, and this blew my mind the first time that I learned it, is move list 1 to like this fader on list 1 to fader number 6. You have to hold down the move key first. And while you're holding down move, I'm going to clear out my command line that was red. While you're holding down the move key, you hit the choose button. Then you let go, hold on, okay. So I can't do it with the front panel on the PC.
Yeah, it may be difficult to do without an actual physical console.
So, but I can do it with keyboard shortcuts. So you hold down move, then you hit choose for that master. You let go of choose, hit let go of move, and then hit choose on the next fader, on the fader that you want it to go to. So if I wanted to move whatever's on fader number 3 to fader number 7, again, it's hold down move, choose that master specifically. Then you let go of the choose key, keeping move still held down, and then you let go of move, and then you can choose another fader for it to go to. And that's just moving one cue list or one fader object to another fader without having to move the list, delete the original list type deal.
Console question. On a physical console, what are the small buttons under each parameter wheel?
Yeah, so those are different programming options. So they are, I'll bring them up real quick. They actually do something. They're not just there for fun. Underneath, where
should be program.
So these encoder wheel button options, you have adjust by 1, so that'll increase the DMX value or by 1. And if you hold down pig and you hit adjust by 1, it decreases that DMX value by 1. Negative positive swaps the negative positive. So if you're at 100 degrees rotation, so it's going clockwise, you hold out and you hit that button, it's going to go counterclockwise now. Or if you're at 100 degrees pan, you hit that button, it's going to go to negative 100 degrees pan. Max min takes you from 0 for whatever, takes you from the minimum of that parameter to the maximum of that parameter. Set, same thing as holding on the set button and spinning that encoder wheel. Cycle feature mode, that is like if you were doing gobo rotate and toggling between rotate, index, and animate, then you could change that there. And you can just use that button to hit to change that instead of tapping on the screen itself or clicking on the screen. And then find mode is the same thing as holding down pig and spinning the encoder wheel. I like mine as adjust by 1 because it's the only one that doesn't have a keyboard shortcut. The others all have a keyboard shortcut. So negative positive is holding on the plus key, spinning the encoder wheel. No, holding on the minus key, spinning the encoder wheel. Max min is the positive key, positive button with the encoder wheel. Set is holding on the set button and spinning the encoder wheel. I guess cycle feature mode also doesn't have a keyboard shortcut, but you can always just tap on the screen really quickly. And then find mode is the same thing as holding down pig and spinning that encoder wheel. So if you were on a console, you would have silver buttons to the left of the encoder wheel, I believe.
There's a question as to why can we assign go, pause, etc. to flash buttons, but not a go to? And I think that's probably well, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, there's a dedicated go to button for the chosen master.
You can assign a go to the play button on a list. And you can say specifically what list you want it to go to, or is it the flash?
There it is, go to.
Yeah. So you can do it on the flash button, on the go button, on the go to buttons, on the back buttons as well. You can assign go tos here. So you hit go to, and then you have your target queue. So you say what queue do you want it to go to in this specific queue list. Or actually, I think it's whatever the chosen queue list is. So I could say 5, I believe, here. And then if I hit let's just record the downside of having all the user kinds. And 5. So I set that to be the play button. So if I choose this, oh, okay, it's not doing what I thought it would do. Okay, so why does that? Does it only work on itself? This is one of those that I don't. So I guess it only works on itself.
I would expect it to only work on itself, since it's specific to the master options, the playback options. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. So go-to here only works on itself, or you can set the go-to command line. So what that does is it puts go-to actually inside the command line when you hit go, when you hit that go button. So then you can say what queue number do you actually want it to go to.
Okay, Timothy asks, so I like to use a pan effect fanning the crowd with two types of fixtures. Using a batch, I'd like to use two different lists. So one list pans, the solo washes the next, and then the next queue releases them. List 2 fans the solo spots and then releases them. I'm guessing he asked. So I assume an add release queue would be this, would be the second queue on each. So I think, yeah. So if I'm reading that correctly, would you just simply add a release queue, or change the option in the queue list?
I would probably end up adding a release, saying to just. I believe I can just change the option in the queue list that says action at end of list to add release end queue. And that way, when you go that list, again, it's just gonna release that list. So if you look here, list 1, I go and it just releases that list. Then I didn't have to program something, and either way I'm gonna end up into my options. That say auto release at end, or I could just add that one release queue.
Hopefully that answers your question, Timothy.
So inside your options of that specific list, you can do action at end of list and hit add release end queue. And that way when you hit go, it goes that list specifically. And when you hit go again, it's going to release that list.
Yes, that does.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. I like answering questions.
I think that catches us up.
Cool. Awesome. And we got to talk about masking a bit too, and batches.
Okay, hold on. Sander asked a question up in the chat. Let me go look for it here.
Okay.
Okay, there are a lot of comment macros like go macro, enable time code, pause list, release masters, and all that stuff. Why is there a skip to list /q comment macro?
Why isn't there?
Well, it's typed why is there.
I'm guessing it's why isn't there.
Yeah, okay, so maybe it's a mistype. Maybe why is there not a skip to list q comment macro?
You can say inside the queue list option, I believe, say go list 33/4. And that way, so by doing go list 33/4, you can just go to that specific queue.
Yep.
So because it exists as adding in a slash.
Correct.
So that syntax is go list whatever number of lists you want to go, and then slash whatever queue list number, whatever queue number you want to jump to there. So I could say /2 if I wanted, and now it's going to jump that list 33 to Q2.
I think that answers it.
And also in that comment macro section in the manual, I know it's great watching me go through the manual here. In the comment macro section itself, it actually talks about all these different options here. So same thing for the masters is if you know that there's a list, there's always a list on master 1 that has a huge list of queues in it, and you know what queue you want to be in, then you can just type in GM1/5, and whatever list is on master 5, we can go that queue, specifically queue 5. And the section of the manual covers all of that all of those options.
Okay, Sander, I'm starting to get confused here because he says, but if I use GoTo, it plays that list directly. I don't want that. Maybe I want to preset different effects for the next moment the beat drops or something.
So that sounds like you might want to have a list. So like we have our effect going on here, 1 through 9. I'm going to put it at 0 first in this first cue. Sorry, not 0. 1 through 9 at 100, just so we can see them. And I'm going to put them in effect 1. That way they're doing something. So I'm going to hit at 0, record, enter, and then we're going to have another one so that you can see it. And record, enter. So that's Q2. So you can actually put a mark. Right, this might be what you're looking for. So we're going to go on Q1, list 34 first. That way it can trigger that mark, but the lights have to be out. I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for. So you can preset. So always going list 34 on Q1, it gets these guys marked. Once the mark is, because I made my mark key wrong. So I'm going to actually delete that Q, and we're going to save 1 through 9 at 100, 1 through 9 at 100. We're going to merge that into Q1 first, and then at 0, enter, record, 5. Your mark Q, the lights have to be in the new position for. So it's off. I hit go. It should come on. Great. So on this list, instead of Q1, we're going to say Q.5. We're going to hit go. It's going to go. That Q, it gets marked. Then once it's marked, so that effect is preset, and you would, in theory, have another Q that actually went that next Q itself. 34/1. So now if I hit go again, it gets pre-marked, and then go, we're preset into that effect already going. Is that, I mean, that's what I think of when I hear preset, is getting it like ready to go into that effect so that next time you hit go, it's going to go.
Maybe. I'm tempted to say to maybe tell Sander to follow up with you via email to maybe explain better. Because it's kind of a little difficult hitting the Q&A and hitting these. Last week, Megan, you showed how we make a chase with one fixture at a time. What if you will make a chase with groups, like Parkan chase from the old days? Michael, she's too young to remember Parkan chase from the old days. But like basically, could you make a chase out of a group, different groups of fixtures, like maybe use the any groups that you have up in this rig.
So like we go from like the spot 2 case, the wash 2 case to the dimmers.
Or yeah.
Like, what am I looking for? I'm sorry, I don't.
Or maybe I think actually using these Unos, these groups of Unos that you have there, and maybe chasing each section together.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you can actually, in segments, what you'd want there is to change your buddying. So increase your buddy size because there's 5 across in each section, then you do buddy size of 5. And then you can hit, so I would doing this in a chase itself, like a 2 Q list chase, I do it 0, and then time 0 through however long I want it to take. So let's just say 5 seconds. So now we can see our delay is 0 through 5 seconds. So we've actually fanned our delay time. The first section is going to start immediately. The next one's by 1 second, and the next one's by 1 second. So I can record that into this fader. and then I hit at full to bring them up. My fade time, my delay time is still fanned out because I didn't hit clear. I record, and that should have gotten my delay times in. So that's with your segments, with your buddying option here. So your buddying is how many lights do you want to treat as one light when you fan? Because I have it set to 5, so then it's saying I'm going to fan across, I'm going to treat these 5 lights as one, these next 5 lights as another light, and then these next 5 lights as another light. And then you can set that into the chase option. It's chase, and now it's just going to be chasing across. And then this would also apply with what Paul did last time with the effect that he took. Paul, do you remember what steps you took exactly to do that?
Yeah. So
it was a step effect?
Yes. Yeah, it was a step effect. So assuming your buddy or your segments or your buddy size is unchanged, yep. You could put these into a step effect.
Step. And then you did size 100?
Yep, you did a size 100. And then I think what you could probably do is fan the offset doing 0 through 180. I think that would go left to right.
0 through 180. Enter. I can speed that up a bit. Cool. Yeah. So what you're looking for is that segments and buddying option. Yep. So buddying is grouping the lights together and treating each group of fixtures as one fixture when you fan. And then with that being said, I'll also explain segments again. So segments is how many fixtures are we going to fan across before we repeat that fan. So I can take this to no buddying. I'm going to take my offset back to 0 here. And then I'll change my segments this time to 5 so we can just see the difference. And then fan the offset now. Or not fan the offset. Type in 0 through 180. And so you'll see that it's done that fan within each of the 5 fixtures now, rather than treating 5 fixtures at the same time.
Good times.
Cool. Great. Those are awesome questions. I hope, Paul, is that it in the Q&A before
we're caught up.
Awesome. Great. Then thanks, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it, not just me. We are going to call it here then because we have hit our time. Next week, like I said, we are going to talk about plots, everything that you can do in plots, so plots, pixel mapping, all that fun stuff. Anything else, Paul, that you have that you want to talk about?
No, thanks for playing along with us today, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And again, this is going to go on YouTube just as the others have. I know it took a little bit long to get that setting the scenes, but that should be up there soon. And these files should also be added to the YouTube Study Hall page. Thanks, guys. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.